And we're just talking about Christmas gifts up here this morning. We won't go into all of that, but thank y'all for being. We're back in action. We'll be back in action today, tomorrow, 3 days next week. Then I take my holiday vacation. Huh?
Really?
Will you stay up past 8 o'clock at night while you're on vacation?
I will when Bama plays.
Night.
Hey, I got a few photographs I got to get caught up on here. What's first, Brad?
Oh,
that's
Doug.
Me on the right, Doug Scripture.
Gina Yarborough's
Yeah, that's her daddy. Ran into him at Walmart the other day. Of course, I always got my same attire on, my Bama jacket. I need a couple more of those.
Is it Doug and John?
And Doug. And the other guy, Johnny, watches all the time. That's me on the right, him in the hat on.
Johnny was funny.
And ran into this guy yesterday.
Roy Perry.
Roy Perry celebrating, y'all know him? Celebrating his 66th wedding anniversary with the same woman this week.
Wow.
He is so complimentary to me every time I see him. Thank you, Mr. Roy.
Hey, like my shades.
That's a good look for you.
I got some right here. Thanks to David Turner, my insurance man.
Oh, they fold up.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Hey,
Stick in his
let's see if my new look.
I think that works good for you.
Distinguished look.
Yeah, that's a good look.
Dee Lauderdale.com.
Yes, sir.
So who'd you interview yesterday on your podcast?
Yesterday I was in Nashville interviewing a guy named Ray Johnston, who's a singer, songwriter, performer. He's from Montgomery. His claim to fame is Mark Godfrey cut him as a walk-on at Alabama, but then he made the Dallas Mavericks.
Really?
Goodness.
Hey, speaking of NBA, didn't Warriors, aren't they like 20-something in a row without being beaten?
Something crazy like that. Yeah, I'm not much of an NBA guy, but I kind of hear.
You know what? One of the biggest television viewing rating for Nielsen in the nation is for NBA? Birmingham.
Yeah.
Like 55%.
Like the town stops when a game comes on.
Interesting.
Well,
yeah, so Ray,
that surprised you?
Good guy. Mark Cuban's one of his best friends.
Really? Mm-hmm. What's the guy do now?
He's a singer-songwriter. He's out on the road performing, trying to make it in the music
business. And he's got Cuban in his back pocket?
Mm-hmm. Cuban did you remember Cuban started a TV network called HDNet?
Yeah.
Cuban had that network do a 6-part series on Ray. Him trying to make it in the biz and that kind of thing, yeah.
Is that network still going?
Yeah, it's changed over now. It's called Velocity. Ended up buying it and combining a couple of other.
How many podcasts you done now since I was the first one?
This is 32.
Oh, boy.
Eventually we're going to air that one. We haven't aired it
closer.
yet.
But the one that probably is going to cause a little bit of controversy is the one I did Monday.
Who's that one?
Gene Jelks, former Alabama player.
Was he number 2 or 4?
He was 22.
22.
Yeah. He was 22, started off as running back, and then Curry moved him to DB. He was signed in the same class with Bobby Humphrey.
Okay.
And turns out he and I played high school football against each other and didn't know it. He was a freshman.
Let me guess who won that battle.
Yeah, and he was a freshman when I was a senior. He played at Emma Sampson. But he's the one that, it's unusual because Gene is one of those guys that's famous on 2 levels. One, he outrushed Bo Jackson in his first Iron Bowl. And then, after running through some issues, he turned Alabama in and made a bunch of recruiting accusations against Alabama. And he's writing a book about that whole thing. He ended up being homeless for 8 years in Atlanta.
Really?
But Gene's in a good spot now. He's trying to get his life back together. Bobby Humphrey's helping him, as is Kerry Good and a couple other guys.
So, that's what my next question would be. How is Alabama fans react to him?
The players have sort of taken him back in more so than fans have so far, which is why he did my podcast, and he's doing a bunch of other stuff to try to make amends. And he says in the podcast why he turned Alabama in. And it's the only time I've ever heard him. The guy who connected me with the interview, when we left, he said that's the first time Gene's ever told why he did it. So if people want to listen, it's about halfway through the podcast.
All the people you've come up with, and some of them are quite amazing, most all of them are. Has it been rather difficult to actually get in contact with them and then talk them into agreeing to talk to you? And you've done a lot in Nashville. Yeah,
most of it, I've just been blessed that I have mutual friends with a lot of these guys. Ray was one that I just cold call. I knew Ray, I knew of his music and that kind of stuff, and I cold called him. He was great about doing it. With Gene, again, we have a mutual friend who called me and said, would you be willing to interview him? So it's a mix, but the vast majority are people that...
so it's picking up.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah,
it
really
is.
You've done a lot with some musicians and stuff in Nashville, and having been there yesterday, We got to go back probably today, but
With your checkbook.
how tough is it?
We left a credit card.
Yeah, you leave them a credit card.
No, you leave a deposit.
You leave them your credit card.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
Worth every
Okay.
penny, hush.
How tough is it to get, and how many people are trying to get a record heard, a song heard in there?
Oh, God.
I'll put it to you this way. I was having lunch with a friend of mine in Nashville yesterday, and he says there are 80 people a day moving to Nashville. Now think about that number.
Musicians?
Musicians.
Not all of them. There's a lot of other
Songwriters.
things, but a lot of them are. I'll put it to you this way. The closest numbers I've ever heard, Andy Phillips is a baseball coach at Alabama that I interviewed, who played in the major leagues. The statistics for major league guys who make it in the major leagues are almost what you see in musicians, and it's this. 4% of college baseball players get drafted into the major leagues. 5% of those who get drafted ever make it to the show. And only 2% of those have a career of 5 years or more. It's almost exactly like that in the music business. It is insane the numbers they go. Plus, you got to remember, the music business has shrunk. I mean, there used to be record companies would have 3 levels of artists, kind of 3 tiers, and they might have 5 or 6 in each tier. Well, now they might only have 2 artists in each tier. I mean, the famous story is at Sony in Nashville when the big crash happened in 08 and 09, the person who was answering the phone also was doing the website.
Wow.
There was that many people got laid off.
Speaking of
it's
Sony,
crazy hard to do.
Don
But
and Frank could relate to this.
Some
But
do.
speaking of Sony, I interviewed a guy back in the Shoals there, if I can remember his name. He owned the restaurant up there, very popular restaurant in Nashville. What was the guy's name? He wrote the book by the seat of my pants. He was from the Shoals area. Sold to Sony for $200 million.
wow. Yeah, I mean, there's
remember
huge
his name
money.
now,
but
but
here's
he
the thing
thought he was
that's different. And this guy Ray that I interviewed yesterday doesn't have a record deal. He's not necessarily looking for a record deal. He's looking for a management deal because he pays for his own records, he pays for his own recording and everything. Then he sells it on iTunes and he makes more money.
Okay,
I mean,
that's another question I'm going to ask you.
With
You
iTunes,
hear
how
everybody
do
say,
you-
well, hey, I've got a record deal in Nashville, but I got to come up with $5,000 or $6,000 to get it.
Yeah,
That's paying for
to
the
pay for
music.
some upfront and studio time and that kind of thing. And then if a CD sells for $12, the artist will be lucky to get $1
Right.
out of it. Whereas if he owns it, he's only got to give iTunes 30%. So I
And
mean,
if it makes it big, then
it's huge.
Okay.
The big money has been and will always be in writing and songwriting. Ray has a new cut on Alabama's new record. One of his songs got picked up. It's called No Bad Days. That's where
They
he'll
got
make,
another album coming out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a new. So he got a cut. That's where he will make his money. That's the
big
mailbox
difference.
I was
money.
at
Be a little
Randy's.
different.
I had lunch with Randy. First time I had lunch with him, and I've told the story before because they always make me look good. They had just gotten their first check from RCA for $1 million.
Wow.
Makes Randy
Kelly,
look
Randy's
good.
wife, he's still married to her, fixed lunch for. They lived in a house. The studio's bigger than their house.
Yeah.
And had a Lincoln out in the driveway and grass about that high growing up, and a mansion going up across the street.
The number I'm about to tell you is about 5 or 6 years old, so I'm sure it's gone up. But just to get a cut, if you have a song that you've written and you get a group like Alabama to cut it or somebody big to cut it, even if it's not a hit, it's going to be about $50,000 a year.
Wow.
In royalties that you'll end up getting
So there's a
back.
lot of. You were going to mention something else up here today?
Oh, yeah. Starting next week, if you go to my website, on the right side, you will see a spot to sign up. And I'm going to start doing a weekly audio for people who sign up for it. Just a bit of inspiration, encouragement, whatever. And it'll go out to the people who sign up for that. And I'm also doing a monthly newsletter. And if I can figure out how to do it between now and then, I'm going to give away a free copy of my book, an ebook copy of my book. Not a hard copy, but an
That one?
ebook. Yeah, on that as well. So go to the website and check that out. Excited about doing that. Been working on that for a while. But the thing I want to talk about with Gene, two things came out of it. One is Gene realized he made a massive mistake, not just one, but several massive mistakes, and he's trying to make it right. And the way he's doing it, he has two older men who are being his mentors. In fact, one of them sat in with us while we did the interview. I'd never had an audience doing an interview before, but here's what I was struck by. Gene is honest enough to say, I messed up. I messed up massively, and I'm trying to make it right.
He paid some plenty of consequences.
Well, he got death threats. He told me, he said, I went underground for 6 years because of all the death threats he was getting.
Homeless for 8?
8 years, yeah, homeless for 8 years because he ran through all his money. You know, he didn't make it on a pro team. He ended up playing in Canada for 3 years. But the fact that Gene is honest enough.
You're not saying Alabama fans could be vicious.
Oh, no, never would say, never say that. But he's admitted it. But the biggest thing I was struck by, these two men that are walking with him are allowing him to not be perfect. They're allowing him to say, okay, you messed up, but if you're willing to work at it, we will walk through this with you. And I just thought that was a great thing for us all to remember as men is, number one, we all need help at some point in our life if we're honest about it, but we got to allow the men in our life to be honest about their failures, to say, I messed up, and not kick them to the curb because they messed up.
He sucked up and took his accountability.
Yeah, now it took him years to get there,
Do you
but he finally did.
any people now?
No.
You don't do any of that?
Very little. Most of what I do.
Because, I mean, that's what your book's kind of all about.
It is. I do a little informal stuff. That's the reason I'm starting to do speaking, is so I can go out and teach this stuff and try to get men encouraged.
Now, how far have you gotten into that?
Just starting. Just trying to get the word out there that I'm available, trying to get bookings and that kind of stuff. I've sort of done it at a bad time of the year.
Yeah, holidays.
Yeah, nobody's booking anybody, but that's okay. I'm talking for people.
But this is the time of year when there's so much sadness, though, and it's supposed to be happy, but there is so much sadness.
It is, and it's so sad. I had a conversation yesterday with a guy, and I said, you know, I'm trying to help these young men get better. And he said, but they don't know that they need to get better. I said, that's our job as older men, is to let them know they're messing up.
The young people, they think they already know